Hi there, and welcome to the third episode of the Make Art, Don't Starve podcast. I'm your host, Kelsey.
And I'm your other host, Al, and today we're going to talk about receiving negative comments, feedback, criticism, and hate comments, and how to deal with that. So I think hate comments is a really strong word, and I think it's something that a lot of people get nervous about, especially when you're thinking about starting this kind of career online, putting yourself on the internet. We've seen a lot of people throughout the years get totally trashed for no reason, and I think it can be something that really intimidates a lot of people, but I don't think it's really, I don't think a lot of people understand the full extent of the issue and the fact that it's usually not as big of a problem as it might seem like it is. And I think that hate comments can hold people back. They get worried about being made fun of or something, and I don't think it's really as big of an issue as people think it is. And I think we can definitely speak to that as going from small to medium-sized creators. We've certainly had our experiences with different kinds of feedback online.
Definitely.
And learning to deal with it. I know when I started out, I used to think oh my gosh, hate comments, that's fine. That's not a problem. And negative feedback, feedback in general, I'm totally fine with getting criticism. And I think it's really easy to say that when you haven't gotten it before, until you start getting it. But it's also it's such a weird, it isn't a problem at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like I was really worried about getting hate comments when I was just starting out, or I was aware of the possibility, but I already had an Instagram account for a while and I hadn't really experienced a lot of hate comments, and putting myself out there on Instagram. And so
yeah,
I was a little bit more nervous because I feel like YouTube is just by its nature a little more intimate. You have to sort of show your face all of the time and sort of talk about your personal experiences. And I wanted to have that vulnerability. I wanted that. But I was sort of nervous about what it would mean for the comments section that I would get. So
right.
I was pleasantly surprised by how positive and welcoming everyone was.
Yeah.
I feel like people don't tend to put really small art creators down. They sort of acknowledge that we're just starting out and we're often pretty young. And so I feel like the comments section and my fear of it and the fear of the hate that I would get didn't really manifest until I started getting much larger.
Exactly, yeah. I think one thing that I've my hypothesis is that there's always a percentage of negative or hate comments, and I don't know what that percentage is. We'll go with 1%. But when you're a tiny creator and you only have 100 subscribers, how likely is it that one person is going to actually say anything to you? Is pretty unlikely. But the bigger you get, that larger amount that 1% becomes, and it's much more likely that you'll hear from them or that you'll notice them. And I think when you're small, people do understand that you're a small creator, you're young, and you don't know what you're doing, and there's a lot more room to be bad at what you're doing. And so people are really unlikely to. That shouldn't be something that holds you back in the beginning if that's what you're scared of. And as you grow and as you get used to being online, you kind of learn how to deal with that criticism as it slowly gets bigger and bigger. Because I think it's an inevitable thing to get some sort of negative feedback, or at least one hate comment. But I don't know, for me it's such a rare thing. I get weird comments, but hate comments is such a rare thing. I think the art community is generally pretty positive.
Yeah, I feel like the art community, it's a unique place and it has its own problems, but I feel like it's not the same as a fitness channel and that kind of comment section. I feel like that kind of comment section can get very targeted on your appearance and your body. And I get some of those comments, but generally the comments that I get around my art or how I present myself,
right.
Or I wave my hands too much or I talk too fast, and that kind of genuine criticism is valid in some respect. You know what I mean? I should take that into account, but yeah, I feel like I didn't start to get really hateful comments until quite recently. I think until I hit 10K. And I think it is it's a pretty small fraction. And as we'll talk about later in the episode, there are definitely ways to deal with that and to minimize it, and to just sort of avoid that if you can.
Yeah. I think what's funny about hate comments is, we'll also talk about this, is it's not what you think it is. For me, when I got my first hate comment, I screenshotted it and I kept it and I was oh my gosh, I finally made it. This is a sign that I'm growing. And the hate comment was, I was so scared of getting a hate comment, and then it turned out to be a really funny, a milestone for me. And you talked about your body. One thing that I've when you said that, it made me think of this, is like I've actually been afraid to like do certain things on my videos because of opening myself up to criticism about certain things of myself. Like I don't wear certain like tight clothes. I don't want to wear like anything revealing because I don't want to open up that, you know, that option for people to like comment on my body. Like
I definitely have like sort of self-regulated my behavior and what I wear in my videos and like the kind of shots that I do. Like I avoid full body shots or like I avoid wearing like V-neck shirts, like things that you can even like be moderately low cut. Not that I don't really gravitate to that myself, just because like I have fears about that, like regardless of online and like regardless of like being online and filming myself, because like a woman in society, it's like a thing I'm always afraid of, getting comments about my body. So like internet is really not that much different than the, you know, walking around the street in New York City every day. But so I definitely have noticed that I regulate myself and my behaviors a little bit and what I'm willing to show and wear on my videos.
For sure.
But I don't know if that's like specific to YouTube and the internet, you know? I think it's like a worldwide thing, which is bad but not unique to YouTube. I definitely agree. There's definitely things that I just like don't wear in general, but I've definitely noticed that like I live in big t-shirts, like I live in them. But living in Florida, it's a very hot place, and there's a lot of times that I wear tank tops and I wear more revealing clothes, and that's something that I've noticed that like I'm just not comfortable doing on YouTube. It's something that I'm fine with doing in real life, and I live in Florida. There's plenty of creeps in Florida, and you know that hasn't stopped me from doing it. But there's something about doing it on YouTube that I'm like, I don't want people to know what my body looks like on YouTube. Yeah, but that's kind of besides the point. I feel that. I wore a tank top in a video quite recently, and I felt kind of nervous while editing it. Like I didn't know quite why, but yeah, like that was the reason. Like I hadn't worn that kind of thing in a video before, and so I was sort of nervous about it. But I think like as female creators, we obviously have a very unique experience.
Yep.
And for better or for worse, it's definitely different.
Yeah.
And I think the kind of comments that female creators get are just sort of different, and I think the art community in general is a very unique space to be in because we have like multiple things you can be criticized on besides just like our filming and ourselves, but also the work that we create, not just the video, but like the art. And I think that there is like kind of a difference between like genuine criticism and actual hate comments. Like someone can have a very valid point about a way that you drew a certain thing or a way that you like filmed something or like something technical versus like just being mean. And I think it's important to like be able to distinguish that, but also the hate comments are just generally funny, and the genuine criticism is actually what puts me on the defensive, I think, more is what I've found at least.
Oh, for sure. I'm the exact same way. Hate comments, one that like I've noticed, hate comments tend to be something super superficial. Like, you're so annoying.
Yeah.
And it's just like funny. Like, why did you take the time to say that? Like, that's so, like, thank you for commenting. Like, that's funny that you thought that this was worth saying. Whereas the criticism is, not to quote John Mulaney, but like, that's what I'm sensitive about. Why'd you bring that up? Like, criticism, it'll be like, I don't know, I can't think of a good example right now, but like, you should use this more, or what, like something that's like really like that I should think about. And a lot of times it'll be something that, like, I know, I'm sorry. And it can be like frustrating to get sometimes it's something that you can't do anything about. It's genuine criticism, but there's nothing you can do. And it just sucks to know that like, oh, other people are like noticing that. And other people can like see that, you know, I'm weak in this area or whatever. And that can be hard to deal with. When it's hatefully said, it's just funny. But when it's someone not fluffing up criticism, then it can hurt. It can be hurtful.
Yeah, that's sort of why I avoid sharing my art or finished pieces or even like works in progress, like friends and family. Because like my boyfriend has very different tastes in art than the kind of art that I make. He likes really realistic, hyper-rendered things. And my goal in life is to be an impressionist painter. And that's not super in line with like his preferences.
Right.
So I'll often be like this, I'm really proud of this piece. And like, it won't be to his taste. But I've had to like tell him like you can still compliment me while still saying that you don't like it. And the way that you do that is to be like, I recognize that this piece is really aligned with the goals you have in your art career, and it like fits that, and so I'm proud of you for achieving that. And like, you know, it's sort of like that kind of awareness is I think important, because like no criticism hurts more than for my friends and family. Like strangers on the internet, like I don't care about strangers on the internet. Like, no offense to my audience, but like your opinion does not matter nearly as much to me as the people that I love and care about. Not that I don't care about you, but like you know what I mean. People that know in real life, and like that to me, like that criticism from people that I love and care about has always affected me so much more, and it can really deter young artists too. And so I think it's important to like divorce yourself from external opinions in a certain sense, just like sort of have your own feelings about you and your art and your own clear goals, and be like, even if they don't like that, it's just not to their taste. That doesn't mean that my work is bad, as long as I'm working toward my goals and to what I want to achieve, because your art isn't going to appeal to everyone, and that's totally okay. I mean, like, you want a niche market realistically to be able to sell more effectively, right?
Yeah, like I fully agree. I think what you said about when you're a young artist, like just knowing what you're about, and I think kind of transitioning into talking about how do you deal with these comments. I think that there's definitely things that you can do. Like there's from the get-go to not only kind of avoid having to deal with that emotional crash of like, oh God, like people don't like what I'm doing. And I think one of those is to kind of be emotionally ready. And in some cases that means waiting. And I think there's a lot of young people online. And if I was 15, if I was 13, 14, 15, 16, and I was putting myself out there and I was getting like feedback, I would quit art. Like if people were telling me like, hey, you're not that good, I would quit. Like I couldn't do it. And I think one thing that you need to be aware of is like really ask yourself, like, can you handle hate? Can you handle negative criticism? Can you handle feedback that is not sandwiched between compliments? This is not your like art class where it's going to be compliment, criticism, compliment. Like it's going to be like, it's going to be harsh, and it's going to be people being honest because they're behind it, you know, their anonymity wall, and they can say whatever they want. And I think if you're young, if you're fragile, if you know you can't handle that kind of thing, then maybe you're not ready to put yourself out there, because
that's okay.
And that's okay.
Like,
you don't have
totally
to.
Fine. It's actually sometimes really good to keep your dreams and your skills a secret for a while you grow more comfortable with that. Like I didn't tell my friends and family right away that I was starting a YouTube channel. I wanted to keep that a secret until I was more confident about it. And I definitely didn't tell them that I was like going to take YouTube very seriously as like a job potential. Because my videos were garbage, and I knew that. And I knew that if I got really negative comments, really like sort of, you know, people saying that I wasn't going to be able to do this, that I didn't have it, like I didn't have what it takes, that would hurt a lot. And I wanted to keep that a little bit of a secret. And I think that's okay. Like you're gaining confidence, and that's going to happen over time, slowly, as you develop your skills. And it's okay to be a little bit guarded at first, and that's totally normal, and you should not be ashamed of that.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, minors on doing art online is a whole different discussion, but I definitely think like if you're young, you don't need to be starting now. Like you can work on your skill behind the scenes, and it doesn't need to be something that you share. You don't need to be a real artist. You don't need to put it online. And if that's something that you want to do, that's awesome. But you need to be working with the knowledge that like eventually you're going to get negative feedback. And you know, if that's just something that you can't handle, like just don't put it out there. And like you said, like that's not like a bad thing to not put it out there and to keep it to yourself for a while. I didn't tell my family about my art YouTube for a really long time until I knew that it wasn't going to be like until I knew it would be like a success. I didn't want to show them something that was like a failure. And I think like being aware of yourself and your emotional maturity and your ability to deal with this kind of stuff is a huge thing. Like me, I didn't get a lot of criticism growing up. With my art specifically. I didn't get a lot of criticism because I didn't have people who could pick that out in my life. Like my mom doesn't know a lot about art, and so she'd be like, yeah, it's good, or like it's not my thing. And so I didn't get a lot of criticism. And so transitioning to a place where I could, like on Instagram, I remember there was this one piece that I did, and I accidentally drew the head really, really big, and all the comments were like, his head is too big, his head is too big. And I was like, no, I'm a failure, because I just wasn't used to receiving criticism. I didn't know how to deal with it. And I think kind of like transitioning from Instagram and getting used to those things before going to YouTube definitely helped me learn how to deal with it. But it took me a while to like be emotionally prepared to receive criticism from total strangers. And I think it's something that you have to mentally prepare for, like genuinely, like not even in the sense of like I don't know, how, like, being online and, like, people are stupid online, but genuinely in the sense that, like, something that you love is going to be picked apart eventually. It's something that you have to mentally prepare for. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. A lot of times there's, like, gems within those. Sometimes it's, like, real criticism that I learned from. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but if your ego is fragile, mine definitely was for a while, it can hurt.
Yeah, I had a very different upbringing where, like, I got really used to really intense criticism about everything. Like, my art, my body, like, the way that I looked, the way that I walked, like, from a very young age. It was a very negative experience.
I can't.
But it did just, like, get me really accustomed to, like, having that thick skin and being like, okay, like, your opinion is not reflective of reality. And I know that I have value and that I don't have to prove myself to you, especially when people, like, can't take it themselves. Like, if you can dish it out but you can't take it, you don't have to put any stock into their opinions. Because especially people, like, when people leave comments anonymously online, there are, like, a couple of things that you can do, right? You can respond or you can just block them and move on. But you have to realize that they're anonymous on the internet. You know what I mean? Like, they're commenting from the strength of being able to do that from the comfort of their own home behind a screen, and they would most likely never say that to you to your face in public, especially because you would have the opportunity to eviscerate them to their face, and they're probably very deeply insecure. And so I found that in my life, people that, like, are most critical are the most insecure about themselves and just criticize you to pick themselves up and to make themselves feel better. Absolutely. And that's just, like, a fact of life that really weak people tend to pick on other people to make themselves feel strong. So it is just something I think that you have to be aware of. And I think that, like, you do gain more confidence and more sort of ease in yourself and your skill set as you get older and as you encounter this stuff in your life a little bit more. And so, yeah, like, you won't feel insecure in your abilities forever. It is a thing that, like, definitely eases as you grow more comfortable posting your work online, and as you sort of gain more experience. But yeah, I think I was nervous about that when I first started, and that nervousness didn't go away for a while, but it did go away the more that I posted myself online, the more, like, I sort of was uncomfortable in my vulnerability, and I had to be okay with being uncomfortable for a little while to get where I wanted to be, and I'm very glad that I did that.
Yeah. And I think especially when you're starting out, you get so much praise, because I think just this community is so overwhelmingly, most of the time, positive and very supportive. And I think that definitely helps in that boosting that confidence and being comfortable with yourself, being comfortable putting yourself out there. Like, the comments that are positive that you do get really, really help build that. And I think you said something that made me when it comes to getting those comments, especially in the beginning, it can be really easy to get, like, defensive, and, like, knowing how to respond to those comments. Do you block? Do you ignore? Do you like, just delete the comment? Like, what do you do? I still struggle with that sometimes. Sometimes I'll get defensive and I'll just want to say, like, hey, like, shut up, like, no one asked. And sometimes that's the right response. Sometimes, like, if someone says something homophobic, I'm gonna get mad and I'm going to say something. And then I also have the opinion that sometimes, like, you're allowed to have a negative opinion about me and you're allowed to, like, express that opinion. I don't always feel the need to delete those comments, because I mean, maybe you're right, like, and maybe other people agree with you, and maybe other people, maybe seeing that comment has already been said will deter them from leaving that comment. And so I think sometimes, I don't really need to delete it. And sometimes if it is homophobic, I don't want other people seeing that comment and feeling bad about themselves, and so then I will delete it. And knowing how to respond to those different kinds of comments, what deserves what reaction, and is it okay to respond, is it okay to get defensive, is something that you really have to, like, learn over time.
Yeah, and you have to kind of analyze, like, where your defensiveness is coming from.
Yes.
Like, is this actually rooted in, like, me sort of already feeling insecure and uncomfortable about a certain thing? Like, are they pointing out something that I already know about myself, like my drawing skills are weak, or that I can't draw heads very well, or that I don't know any points for the face? Like, is that something that I already know, and so I should just leave that there because, like, yeah, you're right? Or is the defensiveness coming from a place of like, that was disrespectful to say and you shouldn't have said it.
Right.
And like there's like such a difference between genuine criticism and something that's like, actively really hurtful. And so I think it's just important to have like that self-awareness of sort of like where your emotion's coming from and to dig a little bit deeper into that. It's a thing I learned in therapy. But yeah, I think it's just important to have that that ability to self-reflect a little bit, especially because like those comments are not going to go away. They're going to get like more increased as you grow your following online, and that's not like as much of a like apocalyptic statement as it might seem.
No, it sounds bad, but it
sounds terrible, but it's really not, because like for that 1% of negative comments that increase over time, so do all the positive ones.
Yes,
and
exactly.
You get more comfortable dealing with that, like again over time. And there are so many ways to deal with it beyond just like responding with a really sassy like reply or just blocking and deleting. You can also like in the YouTube settings, you can block certain words and phrases. Like there have been a lot of like crypto scams going around, a lot of people pretending to be big name creators wanting you to like give them money via like WhatsApp or Telegram or something. And so yeah, I think just like being vigilant over your comment section, setting rules and expectations that you enforce in your community, and that maybe you have volunteer comment moderators, or you hire people to moderate your comments eventually, to sort of set that expectation for your community. Because like as the creator, as the artist, you have complete control and you can set rules for your community. Like on Twitch, for example, there are streamers that don't let you talk about certain things like religion or politics, and like those are rules that they set and have enforced, and their community abides by them or gets kicked out. And you can do that. You can set like whatever rules that you really want to, like, you know, as long as they're within reason and your community actually feels like, you know, they're just. But yeah, I think there's lots of ways that you can sort of shape your community into whatever you want it to be.
I definitely think there's a line of like you're online and it's the real world, but it is your little corner of it. It is your corner of the internet, and you're allowed to protect yourself and protect your community. And I think that's one thing to consider, is creating those rules. And if the comments are something that you don't feel comfortable dealing with, like you said, getting moderators, you can always just don't read your comments. Like if that's something that really upsets you, is you don't have to read them. I love reading my comments because I get so many positive and wonderful messages, and it makes my day. And those far outweigh the every once in a while getting a negative comment. That the negative comment might upset me a little bit, but I see like so many other positive ones that it doesn't bother me. But if that one negative comment really weighs on you, you don't have to look at your comments, you know? And blocking those words is a huge thing. I mean, I have plenty of words blocked just to keep any of my personal information from like being shared somehow.
Oh, for sure. You definitely don't want to get doxxed.
Yeah, so that's like a huge tool, is like being aware of kind of what your platform can do for you is a huge tool. You're allowed to create those boundaries, and it's, you know, maybe people have freedom of speech or whatever, but like this is your house. You can make the rules, and you can protect yourself and create boundaries and take care of your mental health as well. Yeah,
like I know that we make comments about like free speech or like whatever, but like you are not exempt from the consequences of that speech.
Oh, yeah,
like I don't have to keep your post up. You can say it. You can also hide users on YouTube, which I found really useful, which is like kind of like a non-obvious way of blocking. So they can still leave comments, they can still watch all of your content, but no one else will see their comments, including you. And I think that is a very healthy way of weeding out problematic commenters in your community if you feel uncomfortable by them. Like, I think avoiding your comment section should really be a last resort. And sometimes this happens if people get too big and they just like can't keep up with comments anymore. Like I edit for a creator on YouTube that, for example, has like 75,000 subscribers right now, and she like never looks at her comment section because she doesn't have the time. And there's there's that for sure. But you can also look at the comments like in the first hour of a video going live, when like your most loyal fan base is there, and respond to them then. I mean, there are lots of ways that you can manage your relationship with the comment section. And I think like again, you can really make it whatever you want it to be. And the positive comments will basically always outweigh the bad, unless you have like some really terrible take.
Yeah, unless you've done something bad. I also want to add something that I think would have fit better earlier in the podcast. But one thing I want to say is like one thing that I've definitely learned is, like, weird things will upset me. Like, things that I did not expect to, like, it doesn't have to be a hate comment for it to upset you. And that's something that I've definitely had to learn is I'll get, and they're not even necessarily criticism. I'll get a comment that it's totally well-meaning. It's with the best intentions. It's just someone trying to share their life, their take, their opinion, whatever. And it'll bother me for some reason. And that's, like, I think that's really normal. Because you're just not used to having like, I have a decent size amount of people on Instagram and on YouTube seeing my face and seeing my opinions and hearing me and perceiving me. And they want to respond. And that's, like, the normal interaction. And that wide pool of people means that there is a decent amount of them that are going to be just, like, not people that I'm used to dealing with. And I'll get comments that, like, I just, like, don't know what to do. Like, maybe it'll be, like, a huge block of text of someone trauma dumping, and it's just something, like, weird that, like, I don't know how to deal with. And that's something that I did not expect. I did not at all think about the fact that I would just get, like, weird or uncomfortable comments, or people who kind of were encroaching on, you know, my personal boundaries, or on kind of, like, proper, like, YouTube etiquette. And I think that's something that I didn't expect. And I think that's something that I would have loved to know, is that, like, it's okay if you get a weird comment that's not necessarily objectively bad, but it still upsets you. Like, you're allowed to have your own personal boundaries too. That's not something that I ever, like, even anticipated having to deal with, was getting, like, weird comments that aren't objectively bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not like humans evolved to get feedback from thousands of people every day. Right. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, it's not really a thing our brains are, like, have evolved to do. So I think it's like, you know, be gentle on yourself. Like, this is a very unique situation to be in, and it's not a thing that, like, our cavemen ancestors thought of when they were hunting and lighting fires and drawing on caves. Like, I don't think that they were really thinking about, oh, like, what is my streamer chat gonna look like in 2023? Like, no. Yeah, it's definitely a really, like, weird position to be in, to just have so many people with so many different opinions watching you and, like, responding, like, trying to talk to you. And it's weird. You just get some, not bad, it's, like, not bad people or bad comments. It's just, like, I'll get a comment that's like I said, like, trauma dumping. Like, I've gotten weird trauma dump stuff that is like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I don't know. I don't like it though. And it's so weird. And yeah, there's no way for us to, like, prepare for that. But I think it's something that people should talk about. I have never heard anyone talk about the fact that, like, sometimes you're going to get just, like, I guess I have, but I've never heard anyone, like, especially in our community, like, I've never heard anyone really just openly talk about the fact that, like, you'll get weird comments. Like, you'll get weird comments. Speaking of getting weird comments, should we talk about some specific comments that we've received? Because, boy, oh boy, do I have a couple of really interesting examples. Yeah,
we've had some interesting... So Kelsey and I, we are, like, friends, and we'll text each other. And one of my favorite things to do, because I have some, like, art friends and YouTube friends, but no one who quite has... Like, we have a very similar experience, I feel. And so one of my favorite things to do is send her weird comments that I've gotten and be like, what is this? What is this?
Same. And we'll I'm not sure which one of us started this, but it's I don't know. It's one of my favorite parts of our interactions.
Same. It's so fun. It's just a nice place to be like, hey, roast this person with me, because I can't do it publicly because that would be rude.
Or do it publicly with me.
We're doing it now, that's for sure.
So, yeah, you've received some pretty interesting comments. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I will definitely go first. So this is a gem. This is one that I've had saved for a long time. You're so annoying. Please stay off my newsfeed. I don't remember if this is my first one, but this was one that I was like, wow, not only am I big enough that I'm getting hate comments, but I'm big enough that I'm being pushed to people who don't even like me. And so this was an absolute gem. I've made it. This was a gem for me. I was really excited to receive this. I don't even remember if I deleted this or not, because I thought it was so funny. I just, like, you're annoying. Like, that's so, thank you. That's so funny to me. Then we have this one that says, hate your flag in the background in the intro. Vomit emoji, vomit emoji, vomit emoji, pride flag emoji. For a decent period of time, I had a pride flag in the background of my videos. And I don't know why they felt the need to comment this, but this one I definitely deleted. I don't keep homophobic comments up, but why did you say you could have just not watched the video? It's like it's like the first thing you see. You could have just clicked out.
I want to talk about the profile picture for a minute. There's
for sure.
There's like a person wearing, I'm not sure, I can't zoom in close enough to see what they're wearing.
I believe khakis and a polo.
Oh, honey.
Yeah.
There's clearly a truck in the background, an American flag,
Yep.
like
A very large
as
American
someone
flag.
who lived in Alabama, this could not be more of a walking stereotype.
It really is. It really, really is. I mean, I would expect nothing less from someone with this profile picture, and honestly, thank you for your service. Like, you're really keeping up the stereotype. You're really keeping it going. Thank you.
Doing God's work for this country, sir.
Really doing God's work. And then I'll skip to another homophobic one to keep on theme here. I've got a whole conversation, because this is where sometimes I just can't hold myself back, and sometimes I've just gotta like respond. Sometimes I just gotta know what's going
it's
through
obviously
your head.
like the moral high ground to block and move on, but
Yes.
I've never claimed to be perfect.
Exactly. I've never claimed to be a good person. I've never claimed to be nice. And sometimes I just need, if you're going to be homophobic to me, I got to say something back. Sometimes I snap. And this is one of those times. So they said, like you do, and every gay. Please, I really respect y'all, but don't impose yourself on others. And I looked at this comment for so long. I was baffled, because you came to my first of all, I do impose it on others, because my entire channel is about being gay, essentially, a gay artist. Like, that's my thing.
Yeah, it's your personality.
It's my personality. It's very clearly stated in almost every video. So why are you shocked? Like, why, like, this is a theme. Why are you still here? If you don't like it, why are you still here? So I responded, actually, I will impose myself and my gayness on others. If you don't like it, feel free to leave. Heart emoji, rainbow emoji, heart emoji. They said, and honestly, I could have been ruder. Like, it's sarcasm, but I could have been really rude.
No, you were killing it with kindness. I love to see it.
Exactly.
It's very passive aggressive. Like, if that's not a more gay thing, I honestly don't know what is.
I did literally the best I possibly could.
I think gay people invented passive aggression.
We did.
Passive aggression? Passive aggression?
Yeah. Passive aggression. Passive aggression. That's like our bread and butter.
Yeah.
And I think I utilized it perfectly here. So they responded, I talked to you in a respectful way. Best you know you didn't. And I already said that I respect every gay, because they're still human, but don't exaggerate the topic. No one judged you. I never said anyone judged me, so I don't know why you said that. No, you were not respectful. No, you don't respect every gay. Like, no, you said I respect y'all, but, like, saying that doesn't mean it's true, especially when you're, like, being super homophobic. But, like,
what I love
off.
about their response, is that a couple of comments down, they say, I gave you more respect than you deserved, which says so much about what they think about
what they
you
initially
and members of the community.
wanted to say.
Like, you couldn't have done it better.
You really outed yourself there. I love that they come back with full passive aggression, and they've got the heart emojis. I thought you were kind from your videos, but actually you're a good actor. Yeah, you think I'm kind in my videos, because I'm not talking to, like, I'm just talking to a camera. I've got no one to be mean to. Like, that's just a dumb thing to say, in my opinion. Like, I'm not having any real life interactions. All you see is, like, me putting on a personality for a video. Like, what? There is no, that's just a dumb thing to say. Like, yeah, you think I'm nice? Why? I would never be anything but nice in a video. Anyways,
right. Yeah, it's
like, that just is such a dumb, that's not even a point to make, but, like, I just can't believe you would, like, I thought you were nice. Yeah, because all you see is a scripted video. Anyways.
But also, if you go into an interaction when you are already rude, you are already asking someone to self-censor themselves, to not claim to be part of a community that they clearly care about, like, that is offensive. What were you expecting in a response?
This is what happens all the time, is when you do clap back, is they get so mad. If you match their energy, commenters will get, like, hate commenters will get so mad. If you respond with the exact same energy that they had, they will get so upset. And this interaction is just one of my favorites, because I basically imply, like, hey, don't come to my channel and tell me what to do. And they basically say, like, no, actually, this is my house. You came to my house and told me that I'm not allowed to, whatever. And
through the
their
magic
delusion,
of the internet.
I know.
You
Their
appeared
delusion.
in their home.
It just absolutely makes my day. That conversation just lights a fire inside of me. And I think it's a great example of people being so dumb. Like people will really just take the anonymity as an excuse to say anything and act any which way and act like it's justified. And forget the fact that, like, I am a human being. And I'm going to have an angry response when you come and say something homophobic to me. Yeah, I'm going to be upset about it. So yeah, that's one. And then here we've got this very long, I won't read this whole thing, but basically
it's a manifesto.
It is. They really took the opportunity. It was in a vlog. I was talking about my frustration with the fact that during the first quarter of the year, consistently my video performance really, really dramatically decreases, and I don't know what to do about it. And so
that's pretty true for almost every creator that I've talked to recently, by the way. So you're not alone in that.
I feel so much better. I haven't heard anyone else ever, like, the people will say, like, oh, January AdSense dips, but, like, I mean, everything tanks for me for like 4 months straight. So it's good to know that that's not just me. So I was complaining about that in a video, and this person, I feel like they must have been harboring these feelings for a long time and finally had the opportunity to talk about it and let that out, because they really
4 paragraphs.
It's a lot. It's a lot, and it's not just directly responding to what I had to say. It's also kind of like gently roasting me about most of my content, and then at the end they say this beautiful, beautiful comment. So I get why last year your videos tanked. I really hope you read this as constructive criticism, heart emoji. And I respond basically saying, like, hey, thanks for the feedback. Being just genuinely like, hey, thanks for the time, like taking the time to talk to me. Even though I didn't really feel that way about it. I didn't want to, they weren't trying to be rude. And then they said, and I was talking about how, like, I want to be honest about things. I want to be transparent. And they were like, yeah, I get it. But, like, there's a difference between constantly, like, repeating the cons and whatever. And I was like, okay. And then they said, they finished it up with, again, I love your art, but I get why your videos were less viewed last year. Heart emoji. And it's the heart emoji that really just ties it together. Like, bestie, like, I get what, like, I really don't think this person was trying to be rude. I really think this person was trying to come from constructive criticism, positive place.
Right.
But, like, that's one of those examples of, like, why would you say that? Like, why would you say that?
In the
that
comment,
hurts.
they talked about how they just don't watch your videos anymore.
Yeah.
And I think,
just unsubscribe.
Like, I watched the videos they were talking about because I was like, what do you mean by this?
Oh, and their examples don't even apply.
Yeah, it's like, whenever you make a review video, which this commenter was partially talking about review videos and how, like, sometimes, like, you mention the cons too much or whatever. And I think that's, like, par for the course in review videos. You want to be very clear what the negatives of product are, because you don't want to sound like you're shilling or you're, like, selling something that you're not sponsored for. You don't want to sound, like, too positive sometimes, because you want to depict the product realistically and, like, the benefits and the negatives that it does have. And so I think, like, you know, pointing that out repeatedly is actually, like, to be expected. And I feel like you would have received a comment from someone else had you done the opposite. So there's really no way to win here. And I think, like, whatever you chose to do would have been fine. Yeah.
I get a lot of comments on my review videos of people, like, thanking me for my honesty and kind of, like, oh, it's funny to watch you get mad. Like, this is really entertaining. Yeah. So, their comment really baffled me. And again, I think it was just, I think they just had these thoughts for a long time and took the opportunity to say them. And I think this will tie into something that we want to talk about later, which is kind of audience entitlement. But I ended the interaction by saying, like, it just sounds like maybe my videos just aren't for you. And I think that's something that maybe that's fine. Like, I think that's a lot of comments I get. It kind of just sounds like maybe you should unsubscribe then. Like, a lot of, like, those kinds of comments. Like, I think you just don't like me, which is fine. You don't have to. Yeah. Like, I don't get why. Like, that's one thing that I think is so funny is when people, and that's why hate comments are so funny. Like, you're wasting your own time by sitting here and continuing to watch my videos and continuing to comment these negative things when you clearly just don't like me. But also, you're benefiting me
by providing engagement on my content. Yes. You're boosting it in the algorithm. Like, congratulations. You are, like, rewarding the behavior that you yourself have said that you don't like. So, good job. I don't want this video to sound like, or, like, this podcast episode to sound like we're whining at all.
No.
But, like,
but it is a reality that you have to deal with.
Oh, yeah, exactly. This is a reality that you have to deal with. And this is sort of, like, we're trying to set expectations, I think, like, just trying to set expectations of, like, what you should expect when you decide to become a content creator and an artist sharing your stuff online, because, like, this is pretty typical. Like, nothing here is, like, really, you know, unique or odd in any way. It's very much, like, normal.
And I think, at least my goal I think we both talked about this, but the goal with this podcast is to be like add some transparency to the industry, and this field. And I think this is something that I certainly don't hear other people talk about, like, oh, I get negative comments, but no one really talks about like kind of what that entails and like how to deal with it. And you do get upset, like it does bother you, and you don't want to talk about it publicly, but that is something that like does happen. And so I think that's certainly my goal with talking about like the comments that I've received is I like,
for sure,
it's a real thing, and you do have real feelings, and that you're allowed to have those feelings. I think sometimes it can feel like you're not allowed to be upset by these kinds of things because no one talks about it, but you're allowed to feel the way you feel when you get criticism.
It's normal, and it happens, and you shouldn't be ashamed of feeling a certain way about it. No. But I've received some interesting comments. I don't have as many to share as Al does, because I mostly hide comments and not screenshot them, so I mostly just like them. Move on. But these are two that I have actually responded to because I will admit I'm a little bit of a petty bitch, all right? Like, if you go in a certain direction with your comment, I'm probably going to say something about it.
As you should.
You know, just be aware that if you leave a hate comment, I might call you out on it, and you should expect that. So just, live in fear is what I'm telling you.
That is a threat.
So this person says that Instagram caters to good artists. I've seen your so-called work. I'm using air quotes for those of you listening in. Stop criticizing professionals. Putting color on paper is not automatically art. Grow up and stop whining with your privilege. You narcissists are amusing. And what I love most about this comment is the username. So the username is, I love Jesus, my Lord. Yeah, I grew up in a Christian household. And the person that I was mentioning earlier that like really criticized me was very heavily religious. And so that just hit me, you know what I mean? It just like, it's like the skies opened, the angels were singing, a light of sunlight hit me directly as like a spotlight, and I knew this was my calling.
Yeah. It happened for a reason.
Oh, for sure. I'm not religious, but if God exists, he definitely put me on this earth to clap back this one person.
Yes. Yep. This is your divine purpose.
Yeah. And so I responded, sorry. So I responded, Jesus would be very proud of you for being so kind to others. Thanks for watching.
Which I feel like is an appropriate response.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, kill him with kindness. It's the way to go. I was born and raised in Minnesota before I moved to the South, and both of those states are very passive aggressive. So, it's just what I was raised to do.
Yeah, I think it is also a nice, gentle reminder that, like, hey, think about Jesus for a second. What would Jesus do? Would Jesus do this? I think you're helping them out. I think you're giving the criticism now. I think this is a great, healthy response for you to give.
Yeah.
I think it's cathartic for you. I think it's a learning opportunity for them. I think everyone benefits.
For sure. Absolutely. And then we get into the more petty one. Someone said, I say this because I love you. You could gain so much more followers if you lose a few pounds, which, again, sort of talking about female creators, like, this is kind of comment that we get a lot, and it sucks, and it is just kind of a reality. I don't really care about this person or their comment, but I feel like I just, like, kind of had to say something, so...
Yeah.
I said, disrespectfully, I don't think I asked for your advice, bestie, because I really didn't. And that's what touches on what we want to talk about when it comes to viewer entitlement. Like, people think that they have not like ownership over you, but they feel like they're entitled to tell you things because they feel like they know you, or they feel like they know you better than you know yourself, or they feel like they have this connection with you because they've watched your content. They maybe related to what you're saying, maybe like have derived value from it, so they feel obligated or entitled to some degree of power over like what you say, how you appear, and they feel like their opinion matters. And I don't want to tell you that, like, as the audience, your opinion does not matter, but I don't know you.
Right.
We're not friends, like, in
Right.
real life. And it's important to be aware of that sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I meet content creators that I know and follow in real life, or, like, before, like, we called one-on-one, like, before we FaceTimed that first time a couple of months ago, I'd watched your videos, and I felt like I knew you a little bit, you know? And, like, in some sense, like, that's true, but there are, like, facets of a person that you will never see reflected on camera. Like, their backgrounds, their histories,
Yes.
their, like, you know, insecurities that people don't want to share online. And so I think you always have to be aware, like, this person is so much more than how they present themselves. And I should be conscious of that when I'm commenting online and when I'm saying things about them, because, like,
Yeah.
you're not getting the full story in a YouTube video.
It can be, viewer entitlement is such a weird thing. I constantly go back and forth in my head of, like, how much does an audience member owe a creator, and how much, because creator entitlement is a thing too. I think it's less so in the artist community, but it exists. And how much does the creator owe the audience? And it's a really weird, it's the parasocial relationship. Like, like, people think that and I want that. That sounds toxic. I want people to feel like, my goal in my videos is for you to feel like you have an art friend, someone to sit and do art with, because for a really long time, I still don't have in real life someone to do that with, and I miss that. In high school I had it, and then I went to college and I didn't have it anymore. And I want to be able to provide that to people. I want to provide, like, that environment of, like, sitting with your art friends. But people forget that I don't, like, know you in real life. Like, you see me all the time, and you feel like maybe you know me. First of all, not that I'm, like, lying in my videos, but it is a very controlled environment that you are seeing me, and it's me looking, like, the best that I can. And if you don't see me in the video, it's probably because I, like, didn't want to put on makeup and I don't look good that day. Like, you're only seeing me in a certain light.
And whatever we say, we have the opportunity to edit out. Like, we have full control over the presentation of our experience and what we say.
And, you know, I share a lot, but there's a lot I don't share. And I think, so people will feel that they know me. And, like, then that person's like, I thought you were nice, but you're not. Like, there can be this, like, crash in reality for people where they might DM me something that crosses a boundary, and I might not respond in the most, like, not that I'm not mean to people, but, like, maybe I'll say, like, hey, please stop messaging me if you're, like, weird to me. And that might be like, oh my gosh, she's not nice. Like, I'm a person, you know. I'm not always, like, really, really nice. And another thing that I've had an issue with is people thinking that I owe them a friendship, that we're automatically friends. And I'll have people be like, oh, hey, like I'll go through and delete DMs every once in a while because clear stuff out. And someone will, like, start in the middle of a conversation. I'll be like, who is this? And they remember who I am, and I won't remember who they are. And it turns out we've, like, talked a bunch before. And it's like, I have a lot of people every day who DM me and who want to talk to me and who think we're friends. And it's hard for me to keep track of everyone. You know, I don't, you see my face every day. I don't know who you are. And that's, like, a really tough thing to deal with. Or people will be overly familiar because they think you're friends if they DM you or they comment something.
Yeah.
They'll be, like, overly familiar, and I've had people trauma dump. I've had people tell me some stuff, man, that to this day weighs on me. They've trauma dumped, and they've, you know, asked for advice, and they think that I'm going to give them the free art or free advice, or I'll critique them, or I'll watch their video. Because, like, they think we're friends, and I don't want to be someone who says, like, hey, like, we're not friends, you can't like me, I don't like my audience. But there is a boundary there, and it's hard.
Yeah, and I don't want to say, like, it's, like, a universal thing, because I have, like, made friends in my comment section. Like, I have a Discord with, like, my community to go, and, like, that is, like, a community building place. Like, I am there to talk to people. I am there, and I try to, like, be available in DMs if you have, like, you know, a question about something, if you want advice about your art career. But, like, I feel like it should just be, like, kind of an expectation that, like, we are friends in a very specific capacity. Like, we know each other in this specific way.
Right.
And unless, like, we go far beyond that, unless, like, it's very clear, like, that, like, you know, we're actually friends, let's say, like, talk to you, like, via FaceTime or something, then, like, we haven't crossed that audience creator boundary yet.
Right.
And I feel like it's a really gray area, and it's a really blurry line to kind of exist in, especially because, like, I do want to foster a close community.
Yeah.
Like, I do want to be available for people to help them if they need something, but, like, trauma dumping, getting super familiar, thinking that I owe you, like, an in-person visit, or, like, information about my personal life, or, like, my past trauma, like, you don't. need that information about me.
And I feel guilty, like, everything I just, like, I feel guilty even, like, saying that stuff out loud. Saying that, like, I don't want to sometimes talk to certain people. I feel guilty because, like, I don't want, like, that illusion that I'm, like, a really nice person. Like, I don't want to shatter that, but it's also, like, there's a boundary there, and it's definitely gray area, and I just I feel bad all the time. I feel bad all the time about, like,
right, because you don't want to feel ungrateful, or you don't want to seem ungrateful, because, like, your audience is, like, the reason that you have everything, so you have to be really aware of it. Like, our entire livelihoods rely on people watching our content and buying our products, and so, like,
thinking that I'm nice.
The way that we present ourselves is incredibly important, but in the same line of thought, like, you wouldn't trauma dump on a celebrity. Like, you wouldn't trauma dump on Zendaya.
Yeah.
Like, you do not know Zendaya. You can watch all of Zendaya's filmography, and you are not her friend. And, like...
Not that we're celebrities.
Yeah, I think it's, like, sort of... It's, I think, a good exercise to think about it in that way, though, because, like, our availability is obviously, you know, better. Like, we are more out there than they are. We're more, like, in touch with our fan base, but... like, it is that kind of same parasocial relationship that you have, like, with celebrities, and you don't want to be, like, hyper obsessed and overly familiar and, like, you know, thinking that you're best friends with, like, somebody like Zendaya or Brad Pitt or, like, Angelina Jolie, because, like, you don't know them, and the person that you see in interviews and on red carpets and in the movies, like, it's different, and it's in a very specific setting. Like, as creators, I script my videos sometimes. Like, the words that I say have literally been written out and edited for me, that I practice saying in a mirror or, like, to the camera before I start filming. And that's, you know, I am showing up to work when I make videos. You are watching them in the comfort of your own home. Maybe, like, you're doing an art project right now. But, like, when you cross that line from audience into creator, your awareness of the online space just changes so much. And you're so much more aware of, like,
for sure,
I think this person is my friend, but I know that they're not. And when you, like, get big enough that you can, like, meet people that you've been watching for so long, you feel like you'll know them, and you'll have, like, details about their lives that a stranger wouldn't have. But you're not quite their friend, and it's a little bit different.
One thing that because, I mean, there are people that I look up to that I'm like, oh, I want them to be my friend. Like, Lee. Like, if Lee ever, like, interacted with me, I'd be like, oh, my God. Like,
same.
One thing that I have
look at my water bottle, like...
We're Lee stands. One thing that you would have to, like, ask yourself is, like, how much do I know about them? How much do they know about me? And, like, if that's super disparate, if that's a huge difference, like, then you're probably not friends.
And it's uncomfy.
It is uncomfy.
To interact with someone that knows everything about you when you don't know anything about them.
I've had people start conversations with me being like, I'm a huge fan. Like, I've seen every video. I love you. Can we be friends? Like, can we talk? And, like, I know, like you just said, I can't be friends with someone who, like, there's different, like you said, like, there's different kinds of relationships. Like, I have patron members who I consider, like, friends in the sense that they're someone who really support me, and they're there for me, and they comment a lot, and they will provide me with resources, and they're awesome. Right. But I wouldn't consider them friends because they pay me money, and, like, that's kind of weird.
It's like your coworkers, in a way.
Yeah.
Then, like, you know, you have work friends, and then you have real friends.
Yeah, and it's not that I value you any less.
Don't interact with your real friends, right? But it's a different relationship.
It's a different kind of relationship. Yeah, it's not that I don't appreciate you, or it's not that I don't want to be your friend. It's just that there's a boundary that has been created, whether it's by me or by the nature of, like, the dynamic of the relationship, that like, it would be weird to cross. Like, if you start a conversation with me saying that you are obsessed with me, it's going to be hard for me to go from there, because there's already this weird, like, power imbalance that makes it really uncomfortable for me. Like, there will be people who will come in and be like, oh, I love you so much, like, can you critique some of this stuff? And back in the day when I used to do that kind of thing, you know, I would maybe critique, and then they'd be like, oh, and, like, let me tell you about my life. And it's like, well, I'm, like, but now you consider me, like, I feel like your teacher or something, and I don't want to know this about. It's weird. Right. It's really, really weird. And knowing when to make those boundaries and enforcing those boundaries is hard. Like, it's so hard when you already have a conversation going, and then things get weird, and then you have to be like, I can't talk to you anymore. Like, having to say that to someone is, like, really tough. It's really tough. Yeah. But that's something you have to be, like, aware of, and taking that responsibility of taking care of yourself and your audience members especially if they're young and they don't really know how to interact with people, and having to be the person to say like, hey, like I can't talk to you if you're gonna be this way. And I've had people who will like say something very rude to me. Like I've had people DM me and berate me, and then that same person will come back sometime later and be like, hey, I'm sorry, can we like move past this? And I've had to be like, don't talk to me.
Right.
I don't want to. You were disrespectful.
And
like,
you don't owe them anything.
Yeah, and that audience entitlement of like, just because I put myself out there does not mean that I'm willing to talk to you specifically and on a one-on-one basis. And it's a weird thing that again, you are not warned about. You do not there's no prep for this. There's no one talking about it, and at least very openly and accessibly. And it's a very real reality that takes a lot of effort to get around.
Yeah,
and navigate.
And the creator economy is just so new that a lot of these dynamics and these interpersonal parasocial relationships are not well defined. There's not like a rule book, basically.
Right.
You know, with celebrities, it's different. There is sort of more of an established, like, I think, idea of what to do and what not to do. And people that are really obsessed, that cross that line, that think they are too involved, are pretty obviously considered, like, you know, outside of the line there, like they've crossed a boundary.
Yeah.
But the creator economy, it's still like a really gray area. And we haven't really like defined that yet because it's just so new. Like internet celebrity is not very old as like a concept. And so I think it's just like, it's a unique situation to be in, and like no creator wants to seem ungrateful. No creator wants to feel like they're alienating their community, like they're not doing enough. But like there is like a difference in like friends that we have in real life that we talk to, that we know, versus like people in our comment section online or in our DMs. And I think like if you are the kind of person that you really genuinely want to befriend a certain creator, the best way to do that is to build up your own audience, so at least that you have some kind of credibility, or like to genuinely come into their comment section with like a thoughtful comment, or like, you know, a genuine question in their DMs about something, or like let them know that like you've like really affected them in this certain way. Like I cherish the DMs that I get from people talking about how my content has changed their lives or changed their outlook.
I have a whole folder of that.
Yeah, but they don't go into that interaction expecting anything from me.
Exactly.
They just like want to convey their appreciation, and that puts the ball in my court for how I want to respond, and that's how I prefer people to interact with me. Like I don't want you to have expectations on me for a friendship or like a romantic relationship. I cannot tell you how many weird DMs I have received from men about my appearance or like, you know, can we date? And it's like I am in an established relationship, but also
no.
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 Like even if I wasn't, very obviously no. So yeah, I think
I definitely agree. When people don't come at you with those expectations, it just makes the social mapping just so much easier.
So much easier.
And what you said about kind of the best way to establish those relationships is build your own audience. That's true, and it sucks to say. I feel so rude telling people like, well, you have to have a certain size audience for me to like notice you. But like it is not because it's like you're worthy of my time. It's literally because it removes some of that power imbalance. That's literally like the only reason that like that is relevant. Your audience size is relevant. There are people that I've become friends with through continued social interaction, like them being a fan, and I've learned to recognize their name, and now I would consider them a friend. That organically happens, but that's like pretty rare. It's rare for that to happen. Usually,
especially when you grow larger as a creator and you get so many more comments that it's hard to recognize.
Like you had an audience, and that is what, like when you emailed me, that's why it wasn't weird for you to email me, was because you had some sort of audience, because it wasn't like, oh, it's just some random person who thinks that they're going to get something out of being my friend. They're going to get free art or clout or me shouting them out or whatever, like by becoming my friend, or they have like this weird expectation or too much knowledge of me because I could go watch your videos and get knowledge on you. And so it removes that really weird, uncomfortable balance, or the fear that like, I mean, there will be people who will want to be your friend because they want free stuff from you, or they want you to shout out their page, or there's some sort of trade that it's going to happen.
And as we saw with Emily Artful, like they could also be looking to stalk you.
And so
safety concerns on the internet are very real, and you have to be just like constantly aware of that. It's not like
Absolutely.
everyone is like that, but it's like anyone could be like that. You have no way of knowing.
Yes, exactly. And just knowing that, like, someone has some sort of audience that kind of just validates, like, their existence a little bit, as in online, like, as in,
Right,
like, there's a
because,
real
like,
person there.
They understand what it's like to be a creator, to be on the other side. And
Yeah.
that is such a unique life experience.
Yeah.
But it really establishes, like, oh, you're like me.
Yeah.
Like, you understand what it's like. You're not approaching this from a certain angle. Like, you're not trying to get something really weird out of the interaction. You're not, like, I'm not entering into that conversation with one person knowing everything about me and I know nothing about you. It does sort of settle that power imbalance that you were talking about, like that knowledge gap, or, like, you know, whatever you want to call it. But it sort of eliminates that parasocial relationship in a certain sense. Like, when you see, like, art mutuals commenting on people's videos, like Lee Ellickson commenting on Megan Wang's video, or, like, whatever, like, you know that they've actually talked in real life. Like, they've actually talked, like, they FaceTimed before they've interacted.
Yeah.
And they're friends at that point, probably because they started out as art mutuals. They recognize, like, oh, this is a person in my community, like, in my niche that has, you know, a follower count. They've established themselves.
Right.
And that makes actually becoming their friend so much easier and so much less fraught, I guess, with, like, weird emotions.
For sure. And it also, the last thing that I have to say about this, because I feel like we've definitely is, like, the last thing I have to say, my point, is it gives you something to talk about. Because when people start that conversation with, I am such a huge fan, can we be friends? And, like, when I would, like, way back in the day, when I had, like, 15,000 followers on Instagram, and that was it, I would be like, yeah, of course, because, like, I was looking for art friends.
Yeah.
The entire conversation would be them, like, asking me questions. Like, I would be what we talked about. And, like, there was no opportunity for, and I also, like, it is going to sound weird, like, I don't want to know about, like, either, like, have something to talk about, or, like, it's weird. It's weird. So, like, when you have that, like, established, like, there's automatically something to talk about. You, like, presented, like, hey, we can talk about oils, and then from there we talked about comments, and like, we have things that we can talk about and relate to. But if you're just some random person that I don't know anything about you, and you know everything about me, and you're like, hey, can we be friends? And, like, that, like, all we have to talk about is, like, me, like, they will bring up, because, like, that's, what am I supposed to say? Like, hey, tell me your life story so we can catch up, like, so we can, like, be even. And so having that, like, gives you that even ground for conversation, rather than, like, someone knowing everything about you and being able to talk about you and you knowing nothing about them and not even knowing where to start in getting to know them. So I think that's also a huge reason. Yeah,
like, when I emailed you for the first time, it was about oils. It was like, hey, like, I saw that, you know, you're looking for advice or something about oil painting, like, I'm an oil painter, like, you know, if you have any comments for me, let me know. And then we emailed back and forth for a little bit, and then I was like, do you want to FaceTime? Like, I feel like we could actually just be friends. And then we did, and then, like, I feel like that is, like, the step when you know, like, that you are actually, like, committed to being a friend, when you have, like, seen their face and you've communicated like that, and you actually have like a conversation that is not just about like one person. Because, like, think of a friendship built on that. Like, would you really want that, where, like, you're interacting with someone, all they ever want to talk about is just you? Like, wouldn't that feel strangely one-sided? Like, wouldn't you not want to do that?
It's so uncomfortable, and I definitely think that just having some sort of audience, even though it sounds so shallow, it just gives you such an even ground to work with. But yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about when we talk about, like, audience entitlement, is it stems from these weird comments that you'll get, and then it can snowball, and it's, like, a really weird thing.
I think the last thing that we really wanted to talk about, we already talked a little bit about how to respond to comments and whether or not you should. And I think there's value in a certain sense to calling people out if they clearly have not considered the fact that you're a person, that you're just an object on the screen, especially as female creators. Like, I think there is that increased sense of, like, entitlement that people feel, like, they don't consider you quite a human being. Like, for example, I'm on a Discord with other YouTubers in the YouTube Partner Program that are monetized, and there's this one creator that talks all the time about how, like, the men in her comment section, typically older men, because her audience skews older because she talks about history a lot, just have so much to say about her body and her appearance, the way she presents herself, and they, like, are unabashed in their criticism. And it's because they feel like she's not a person behind the screen. Like, she's there to entertain them. And that's a really weird thing to, like, think about someone.
Yeah.
And to sort of comment like that, like, you're an object for my entertainment, and, like, you're not doing your job correctly. Here's what you should fix. And I think it's in some sense important to respond to people sometimes when they feel like that, to remind them that, like, I am a person. I do have feelings. Like, there are things that you don't know about me. Like, for example, if you were to comment on someone's video about, like, their weight or their appearance, if they'd long since struggled with, like, an eating disorder or, like, whatever, like, would you say that to someone in real life? No, you wouldn't. Of course not. That would be abominably rude. Like, you would never do that. And, like, you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. You know what I mean? So, yeah, like, there's value to responding sometimes if you feel like you are comfortable with doing that. But also, like, never feel obligated to. You can always just block and move on, and that's totally fine.
Yeah. I think that is, speaking of, like, someone who has to deal with a lot of people commenting on your body and, like, how you look, I think that's a really great segue into talking about pretty privilege and how that can sometimes play a role in your comments and some weird comments you might get about that. I know you've received comments basically implying that the only reason you have an audience is because you're pretty. Yeah. And I that's always such a weird thing. Like, is that, like, do you think that's a compliment, implying that I don't have, like, the skill to deserve an audience? And that's, like, always a weird, and it makes me question sometimes, like, when you get comments on your appearance, like, am I ugly? Am I pretty? Is that the only reason people care? Is this a lot, like, it's so, why do people feel like the need to comment on that kind of stuff? And
yeah, I mean, I feel like I was bullied a lot about my appearance growing up, and so for me, it's, like, still new to consider myself, like, attractive. I mean, like, I know that I am. I'm not fishing for compliments. Like, I know that I am attractive. I have, like, worked through that. Like, I'm killing it. Like,
you are.
Absolutely, the slay is unmatched. But yes. I do think that, like, obviously, it is easier to get a following online if you're pretty. If you are attractive,
plays
like,
a role.
That's obviously true. And life isn't going to be fair. Like, you are going to be dealt a hand that has some unfair advantages sometimes, or unfair disadvantages, and you have to be aware of that and, like, use it. I don't know. Like, if it's your tool to get where you want to be in life, then, like, by all means, take advantage of that. It's a hand that you were dealt. Like, everyone else is going to play it. Why shouldn't you? I do think it, like, you know, it makes things easier, for sure. I don't know where I would be if I looked a certain way, because I don't look a different way. Right. So I only have, like, this face to work from when it comes to my analytics. You know, I can't, like, try on a
there's not much you can do about it. There's not much I can do to change the way I look to suddenly, like... and I don't think it's... Getting the comment that, like, the only reason you have followers is because you're pretty is so strange. Because, I mean, you clearly have the skill to back it up, and also, like, your videos are not just about art, it's about plenty of other things, so, like, I don't know why that would even be something that crosses someone's mind. Yeah, but I think, I don't know. No, I don't know. I think that's just something that I've been aware of lately is the role that pretty privilege has, and how that can affect comments and what kind of comments you get. And sometimes I think it might be detrimental to be pretty, because I think sometimes that attracts certain types of comments that you might not want. Agreed.
Yeah, it is interesting, but
it is interesting.
Yeah, I think,
love,
like,
being a woman online.
I don't think that is the sole reason why you are as popular as you are. You know, like, obviously there has to be something else, right? Like, your art is insane. Like, you're so good at, like, drawing faces and figures.
Oh, you're talking about me?
Yeah, I'm talking about you.
Stop.
And, like, it. I'm really willing to show the money side of it, the business, and that is very much in demand by people. And so we both have our comparative advantages that are, like, you know, different from just what we look like. And, you know, we take advantage of that. Like, why wouldn't you show off your strengths? It's not like our content is about the way that we look. We're not, like, beauty YouTubers or, like, fitness vloggers or whatever. But, like, I don't know. I don't think we're popular just because of what we look like. I think maybe it helps, but it's hard to say how much it helps. At the end of the day, I think that, like, YouTubers are as popular as they are because they provide value. Value can come in so many different forms. It can be entertainment, like Mr. Beast. It can be, like, practical tips on how to apply, like, a certain foundation. It can be an insight into, you know, this is what your sketchbook will look like if you're at this stage. It can be entertaining, like a sketchbook tour, or like a paint with me, draw with me kind of video. And it can also be really educational, like, you know, this is how much money I made at this amount of subscribers or whatever. And like, you wouldn't watch a video of just like a pretty person just like sitting there looking in the camera. Yeah. Like, that wouldn't be enough.
No.
There has to be something else.
Like you said, it's a tool. If you're pretty, use it. Like, why not? Like, I don't see anything wrong with... I think it can be frustrating. Like, again, I'm not trying to fish for compliments. I don't think I'm the most objectively attractive person in the world. I don't think I'm ugly to look at. And I can only, like, I can imagine, like, if when I was going through, like, puberty and I was objectively ugly, like, I just was ugly, I can't imagine how hard it might have been for me to, like, try to make a channel at the time.
Oh, and yeah. When I was 13, I had so much acne. I had to go on, like, the strongest possible medication for it, and I still have lots of acne scars. I had I had red scene hair when I was, like, you know, like the scene, like, emo scene hair.
Oh, I need a picture of that. I need a picture of that.
I have it somewhere. I have it somewhere. I can maybe find it. It's like, I have, like, my, like, old school card. And then I also used to hand make tutus, and I would wear 2 of them on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday I would be goth right after in middle school. So,
Cassie, you are an enigma. I did not know this. This is crazy. This is crazy to know about you. That is so
I don't think I've told anyone
off.
about this on the internet yet. So congrats.
Absolutely insane.
I feel
privileged.
You've unlocked some deep Kelsey lore, but
that's crazy.
Yeah, I think, like, you know, everyone's different.
Everyone's different. I think it helps. I think it helps to be not ugly, honestly. But I think, like, who cares is, I think, what I've kind of determined is, like, it's a tool to use. Like, I've been thinking about, like, conventionally attractive, like, a lot of popular YouTubers are conventionally attractive, but you're not, like, watching them because of that. And I think that's just part of, like, the package of, like, seeing someone successful and living the life that you want to live and being an artist full time and like also being pretty. It's like, that's the dream. It's just like being a pretty person doing their dream job. And, like, I don't think it's a bad thing to, like, just, like, have your face. Do you know what I mean? I don't really know what I'm trying to say here, but when you get those comments, to me, it makes me question, like, am I good? Am I bad? Why are people, am I pretty? Am I ugly? And I think I've learned, like, ignore those. Those are such nonsensical comments. Yeah. Ignore those comments. That's
and
what
most people are just, like, average.
Like,
most people are just, I think we're, like, pretty par for the course people
I think
with faces. Like, I don't think there's anything particularly special about me. Yeah, I think, like, you know, most people just exist on that spectrum.
Yeah, and I think, like, honestly,
it's fine.
I think most artists that I've noticed are, like, a little bit ugly, but in a good way. Like, that's, like,
unique
what
features and, like, unique proportions.
Yeah, but because they're, like, artists, well, this is gonna sound rude, like, if you're not an artist, you're ugly. But, like, I think when you are artists, like, learn to see the beauty in everything, and like that's one thing that I've, like, really, like, helped my own confidence is, like, doing self-portraits and, like, learning to find, this is a totally different topic, but, like, that's just something that I've noticed about artists. Like, we're all, like, ugly in a good way, in a way that is just, like, interesting. Like, I don't think I've seen too many artists that are, like, cookie cutter attractive, and I think that's awesome.
Like, when I did that 100 Heads challenge, I actually liked drawing conventionally unattractive people.
Oh yeah,
because they were more interesting.
They're more
to
interesting.
Draw. And that was, like, more enjoyable for me. But also, like, you were talking about perception a little bit earlier, and I think, like, when you watch someone's content a lot, like, when you think that you know them, when you grow, like, closer to them on your side of the screen, you're gonna find that endearing, and you're gonna find them more attractive than if you just saw them on the street, because you know them. You know what I mean? Like, I find the people that I'm close to, like, cuter, more attractive, because I know them. And that's not a thing that I would think of just, like, some random person. So I think that, like, that parasocial relationship feeds into how you perceive someone's appearance as well.
That's a really good point. I feel like this devolved a tiny little bit at the end there, but I feel like we had a good conversation. A little bit. But that was mainly what we wanted to talk about today, was weird comments that you get and dealing with those comments and how that can kind of feed into your experience as an artist online and dealing with that and expectations.
Yeah, and again, like, we just want to set expectations. I feel like there's so much mystery that goes on behind the scenes of wanting to become a full-time artist and a content creator, and just, like, demystifying that, like, participating in radical transparency is really beneficial,
Yes.
and that's what we want to provide for you guys. So if you guys have anything that you want to see from us in future episodes, let us know. In terms of our plans for the next couple of episodes, we are looking to have more guests on the pod going forward. So hopefully in episode 4, we'll have our first guest.
We have a few guests lined up that we're really excited for.
We are so excited for our guests. And again, if you have
excited.
something specific that you want to talk about on the podcast, if you like have a really exciting project that you want to talk about, if there's like a specific thing that like you want the world to know and you will not rest until the world knows it, let us know and email us at the email in the description below. And
anyone is welcome. Anyone who does art in some capacity as their job is welcome, because our goal here is like transparency and getting different perspectives and different backgrounds. I think is super important in doing that. So you don't have to be like super big online. You don't have to have any sort of online presence. If you do art, if you make money from your art, we wanna hear from you and hear your experience. And I'm sure a lot of people have opinions and takes out there that they would love to share, and we'd love to hear them. So
yeah, and this would be
email us.
Again a Kelsey and Al approved way to become our friends by appearing on the podcast.
Yes.
Because you'd be forced to have a conversation with us.
Yes.
So if you're obsessed with one of us, not in a weird way
Here's
though,
your
mildly obsessed. If you're mildly obsessed, then consider joining the pod.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching.
For sure. Again, leave us likes, comments, subscribe if you aren't already. This podcast has been reaching so many people, and we're so excited for it.
It's crazy.
Yeah, give us 5 stars on Spotify, pretty please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's all we have for today. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.